That's
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, you alluded to me being with seahorses for a long time. I actually started when I was 14, very long time ago. I'm now 67, so you can do the maths there. So a very, very long time ago. And what is actually fascinating is when we started the Studland Bay Seahorse project, it wasn't an intention to protect the area or do anything like that. It was to try and understand and discover more about seahorses. And I can literally say, hand on heart, every time I go in the water, I learn something new about seahorses every single time. And there's been a lot of publicity about the Studland Bay Marine Partnership, about the success of the eco moorings. That map you were just showing there with the blue outline of the seagrass meadow, the seagrass is actually starting to spread further along from there now, which is absolutely fantastic. And it is solely the cooperation of all these different groups that have allowed it to happen. But I do sometimes think that the seahorses themselves actually get a little bit forgotten in the whole thing. The actual animal itself, the essence of what a seahorse is. So tonight's talk, The Secret Life of Seahorses, is really about what is a seahorse, what drives it. And I'm going to make no apologies for showing some non-English seahorses in the talk because they are a fascinating species. And I'm writing an article at the moment about convergent evolution in seahorses, which is basically why seahorses have got so many other bits of other animals in them and how it's evolved like that. So hopefully after tonight's talk, you'll understand a little bit more about seahorses. It's just a touch on what makes them strange and unusual and beautiful and enigmatic and the stuff of legend. So I'm going to just share my screen and start the
Yep.
talk.
Stop sharing.
Okay, right. Replace current slide. There we go. Right, you should hopefully have my slide up now. Um, is it allow? It's not allowing me. There we go. Right. So, Tony, have you got the titles there?
Yep, I can see your
Yeah, brilliant.
see the
Right.
presentation.
So we've called it The Secret Life of Seahorses, unveiling the mysteries of a unique marine creature. And that's exactly what this is all about. We are going to explore what makes seahorses such an unusual and incredible species, actually. And if nature just literally cut up a load of animals and chucked them in the air and put them back together again, she would actually have the seahorses. But it's so much deeper than that with seahorses. What we're going to do is split this talk into four pieces: an introduction, surprising behavior and adaptations, unique reproductive strategies, and the ecological importance and conservation. And all the time in the back of your mind, think to
Headset,
yourself,
microphone,
how,
solar system.
oh, sorry,
Uh,
yeah,
Sorry, can I remind everyone to turn off their microphone and cameras? That'd be great. Thank you.
yeah, I mean, all the time, I think it's worth bearing in mind um, how successful Studland has been, and people around the world are trying to replicate it. And it's this little animal, the seahorse, that is actually allowing them to tell the story, basically. So first off, we're going to look at an introduction to seahorses. Now, there's approximately 45 to 65 different seahorse species that exist. This one's a tropical one. Beautiful animal from the Far East, I believe, in sort of around Cambodia, Thailand, that sort of area. But seahorses vary in size from 1.5 to 2.5 centimeters to the largest ever recorded, which was actually off Old Harry, off Studland Bay there, and it measured a whopping 34 centimeters from the top of the head, that little crown you see on the top, to the end of the tail. That is literally the largest ever recorded anywhere in the world. And we quite often get seahorses at 18, 20, 22 centimeters in the work that we're doing. But to get one at 34, A, it must have been quite an older animal, but B, it just shows left unmolested. If it's got a good supply of food, great habitat to live in, they can grow to a decent size. Now, one of the myths about seahorses is they're solely a seagrass species. That's not actually true. They can occupy all sorts of habitats from coral reefs, mangroves, open seabed. I very often see them on open seabed. But particularly in relevance to Studland Bay, it's the seagrass that's really important to them. And it's a case of living on, in, and around the seagrass that is very crucial to them. They use every part of it. They migrate across it. They live on the edges of it. They live in it. The food they eat is reliant on the seagrass. So they're completely adapted to that seagrass sort of area at Studland Bay. Now, people always think of them as a very shallow species, and we do know they migrate into deeper water in the winter, but there are seahorse species that actually can be found quite deep. And even in this country, we've had records from 70 meters down where seahorses have migrated into deeper water. But off Japan, there is actually a seahorse that lives around about 20, 40 meters. Now, the four parts of seahorses that make them very famous, they've got this horse-like head, they've got a curled prehensile tail, these sort of bony, almost armor-like plates that are covered in skin, and they have a very upright posture. They sit upright, they have a head and a neck, and they hold on vertically, and this incredible tubular snout. Now, all these parts, they look as though they've come from other animals, but they're actually perfect adaptations. I think that seahorses have reached the peak of their evolutionary adaptation, and they are perfect. Now, this little fella you can see here, you'll see more about him in a minute, is actually living on a sea fan that is about 20 meters down. Now, when people say to me how many seahorses are, and like I said just now, 45 to 65, but we have to keep a very open mind about that because it depends on whose classification system you're using. It depends on whether they've been seen or not. There are a lot of seahorses each year that are renamed, or species of seahorse that they think are over a larger area. They actually split them down and divide them into two separate species. And I think the sea dragons, which are a great example of why we shouldn't be 100% about what species there are, give us a good example of what's going on. Now, if you get a seahorse, and I don't recommend doing this, and you stretch it and put it horizontal and put some fancy bits of fins on it, you've got a sea dragon, basically. And we always knew there was the leafy sea dragon and the weedy sea dragon, mainly from South Australia, South Eastern, Southwestern Australia. They tend to live in very similar habitats, although the leafy, as you can see, is much more elaborate, lives in quite heavy algae. But the scientists were going through a lot of old sea dragon bodies, and we actually collect dead seahorses ourselves that have been washed up on the beach. And it's really useful because when they started to go through the bodies, they realized there was possibly a third animal. And it turned out to be true. They looked at all the different skeletons, they identified where those skeletons came from, and they realized they had actually discovered a new species of sea dragon. It was called the ruby sea dragon. They set off on expeditions and they eventually found them. But the curious thing is that the ruby sea dragon is not a shallow water species at all. It's found 20 meters plus and it's red in color. Now, the red is perfect for adaptations into deeper water because for those divers amongst you that know, red is one of the first colors to disappear as you go into water. So underwater, as a red animal, you're almost black or dark gray. Now, the seahorse habitats, this picture was taken by my brother in Torbay, and it perfectly shows a short-snouted seahorse on a holding pot in the bay, sitting upright, very vertical in its posture, and blending in incredibly well to its habitat. And we were saying just now about the habitats, they are in a variety, even in with the short-snouted seahorse, even within man-made structures as well. Quite often they're in man-made structures, and marinas and boat folk, who are one of our partners in the Studland Bay Marine Partnership, were great because they helped enhance their marinas. They put a lot more features in there in partnership with Portsmouth University, and it's increased the number of species that are out there. Now, we know that they're found right across the world, and they're in almost every ocean of the world: the Atlantic, Pacific, Indian, the North Sea, the Celtic Sea, and quite a few others. So this, oh, my slide's not changing here, sorry. It's frozen here, Tony, sorry. Um, sorry, I'll go back. There we go. So this map here actually shows the known distribution of seahorses around the world. So anywhere it's blue is known seahorse. And I keep saying known because we're discovering things all the time. Like there are seahorses off Nova Scotia now. They could be in much colder parts of the world as well, because we know they will survive at least down to 6 degrees, possibly less. So they are all the way around. Now, here in Europe, they are everywhere in Europe. And a few years ago, I started to suspect they might be all the way around the North Sea. And working with partners over in Scandinavia, we discovered that yes, they are actually there. They're in Norway, Sweden, Denmark, all along the continental coastline. Orkney. So I was talking to somebody today who sees them up in Orkney, all around the British Isles. And interestingly, we have two species throughout the whole of the British Isles and Europe. Or, however, and this word however is going to keep coming up, I'm afraid, a third species has come through the Suez Canal and is now starting to breed in the Mediterranean. Sadly, a lot of species are coming through the Suez Canal, like, as the divers amongst you will know, the lionfish, which is actually devastating anywhere where it's actually going. Some are being released as pets, some are coming through the canal, but they are devastating the place. So we have this third species now. Now, the worrying thing about have this third species coming into the Mediterranean is we know that seahorses can interbreed and they can hybridize. So we're hoping there's not too much of that going on. Now, here in the UK, we've got the two species. We've got the short snouted. This pair were taken by a friend of mine, John Newman, in Torbay. He actually spent 3.5 months studying this particular pair, and he would go down every single day diving with this pair, and he knew exactly when they were coming in and out of the area. He even could time the female coming into the male every single day. So the map shows the known distribution of short-snouted seahorses. But again, I keep saying known distribution because there's no reason why they wouldn't be in any of those other areas. But until we actually have the concrete evidence, we can't actually list them as being in that area. The other species, and this beautiful big male here was taken in Studland Bay. He actually gave birth the next day and he got pregnant the day after. So quite a busy chap. And again, distribution all the way around the British Isles. And again, with the spiny, his distribution could be much more than this, but unless we had the concrete proof, we can't put the evidence on there. Now, some of the surprising behaviors and adaptations that seahorses have are their camouflage and body shape. There is a seahorse in this picture, and it's got this one, all of them have bony plates for protection. They have a variable color, and we're going to go into more detail about all this in a minute. But they could also mimic plants and corals, exactly like this one's doing here. Now, for those that can't quite see him properly, I've ringed around the head. Now he's actually looking towards the camera with his snout pointed downwards, and his back is above us, looking away from us. He is actually a very heavily pregnant male. The dark grey to the top left hand of the circle shows where his brood pouch is. Now, going on to the bony plates, seahorses are literally made up of hundreds of triangular it's almost like a cartilage that makes up their body. That's held together by ligaments, and then over the top of that, you have a skin, not scales like other fish. So it's very much like an eel, in as much as it's got a skin with a mucus on it. That allows them the flexibility with their body. It gives them a much more flexibility than if they had scales over that. It'd make them very rigid and they couldn't move so much. So having skin is vital to them. The mucus covering on the skin is absolutely fantastic because it protects them from disease and stuff like that. So one of the reasons why you should never handle seahorses is you can break that mucus covering and it actually makes the seahorse ill long term. Now, the other thing about camouflage is its variable coloration. Now, this is a three spot seahorse. It's the male at the front and the female at the back. Now, that male, about a minute or so before I took that picture, was the same color as the female at the back. Now, he's turned white. He's trying to encourage her attention, but crucially, have a look at the markings on the body. Now, you've got the three spots on the neck and on the upper part of the back. You've got the lines on the dorsal fin there, which he's fluttering. You can't see it in the still picture, but he's actually fluttering to attract attention. But also on his chest, you've got the dark line around what we call the keel as the seahorse to show his outline, to show how big he is. And what he'll do is turn towards her and he'll show off the side to her, very much like a peacock displays to a peahen, and is fluttering to try and attract her attention. Now we've gone back to our little friend that we saw right at the very beginning. This is a 2 centimeter seahorse at 20 meters. Now you imagine 2 centimeter, it was really hard to find. But if you look at the picture, he's got the usual traits, the head, the upright body, the long prehensile tail, but the lumps on him make him look exactly like a sea fan. They're called tubals. On the bigger seahorses, they're called cirri. And you can see that amazing eye there as well. Now, feeding in seahorses, this is the one thing that actually lets seahorses down, to be honest. They have an amazing diet. They'll eat almost anything they can get into their snout. So small shrimp, crab fry. We were talking about it today in a meeting, possibly even oyster spat. But a seahorse fry has to eat about 3,000 pieces of plankton in every 24-hour period. A seahorse adult will eat between 35 and 70 2 centimeter plus long shrimp per day. They have a voracious appetite and they're also very voracious predators as well. Now, the long snout, the prehensile tail, really lend themselves to being a stealthy hunter. So by holding on with their tail, leaning forward, stretching the head out, and with having the snout right out in front of them, they can reach bits of food that you probably thought they wouldn't be able to reach. But also the snout actually opens quite wide. In the same way that a snake can unlock its jaw, a seahorse opens its snout quite wide and allows it to take in lots of food. It snaps in that food so quickly that the food disintegrates because they don't have teeth. They have to rely on the food disintegrating. And this is the point where seahorses get let down by nature because the food goes into a digestive tract, but they don't have a true stomach. And it's quite surprising in an animal like this, but it's the reason why they have to eat so much. The food gets inside them, slowly passes down through the intestine, and the movement of the seahorse in the water, it sort of moves side to side by the tides and what have you, help the food move down and it passes out through the other end. But the digestion process is so poor that I've even seen bits of food come out the other end and swim off. So they're not great on that, but they are incredibly stealthy in their hunting. Now, their movement and swimming style is quite interesting. They don't like to swim for long distances, and their tail tends to stop them quite often. If you see a seahorse swimming along, it's usually vertical as it swims along. If its tail touches something, it suddenly grabs hold, and then the seahorse comes to this grinding halt. It's quite comical to watch. But the thing that drives it along is the dorsal fin on the back, and it actually flutters to 35 to 70 beats per second. And the fins on either side of the head, which traditionally on a normal fish that's horizontal are out to the side, it's actually either side of the head on the seahorses. They act as rudders. So you've got this dorsal fin on the back propelling it along like an outboard motor, the tail trying to grip hold of everything so they can swim for short distances. Then they tire out quite quickly, then they have to rest, and then they move on again. So a combination of being able to swim, camouflage, make them very, very good predators and good at hiding as well from predators. Now, their unique reproductive strategies. Seahorses, without a doubt, are very famous because it's the male that gets pregnant. And it is a true pregnancy. He's the only male animal in the animal kingdom to have a true pregnancy. And that means he gets pregnant, feeds the young through placenta, gives birth by contraction. There are other animals that actually have a surrogacy. They hold on, like the sea dragons. They haven't advanced as far as seahorses, so they literally have fertilized eggs attached to the outside of the tail. A little bit of nutrition going into the eggs, but on the whole, the eggs sit there until they're about ready to drop off. To get pregnant, the male tends to pair with the female for a season. They don't pair for life like was originally thought. They pair for a season. The male will shimmer around the female. In this picture, which was taken in Studland Bay, you see the male at the back and he's shimmering around the female. And they usually do it around an object like a piece of seagrass or something like that. See again in this picture, he's got his dorsal fin erect. He's got the dark line on his keel. He's lightened up. He actually went lighter than this a few minutes later. And they start to swim together, almost in a synchronized swimming pattern, until at the very last moment they rise in the water column together and face each other. Whereas then the female deposits the eggs inside the male's pouch, and that's it. At that point, the courtship's over. They separate. They drop to the seabed. She goes off to the pub. He starts doing all the looking after the baby stuff. So, um, and sometimes when the seahorse has given birth, like I say, he can be pregnant within 24 hours later. Now, it's very important on the male seahorse. This big old fella here, this picture was taken in Studland Bay, and he literally did get pregnant 24 hours later. And inside that big pouch is actually a lining. And the lining provides the nutrients and the oxygen and everything else that the eggs need. Now, they have a small yolk sac like a traditional fish, but most of the nutrition and stuff actually comes from the adult seahorse itself. By the end of a breeding season, the males tend to have lost an awful lot of weight, and so it's probably quite a relief for them to go into deeper water and start to build up their weight again and what have you. It is a true role reversal. There is no other animal in the animal kingdom that does this true reversal. Now, this picture is really good. The top picture taken by a friend of mine called Francis Opestegui, who actually is a National Geographic photographer. That seahorse is a baby spiny seahorse that was 24 hours old. It went on to be the founder of multiple generations. I bred in when we had our centre in Exeter many years ago. So that I'm really proud of that picture. Now, the orange eggs taken by a friend of mine called Gay Rosier are seahorse eggs that have missed the pouch. When they seahorses were aligning to try and get the eggs into the male's pouch, they slipped, they missed, and the eggs ended up on the seabed. But look how bright orange they are. There is very high mortality in young seahorses. So every 25 to 28 days, depending on the species, the seahorse gives birth. And out of every 1,000 to 2,000 babies born, probably only 2 to 3, maybe even 5 will survive to maturity. It's not any higher than that. Once they've reached maturity, they tend to be relatively safe, which is quite good. Now, the ecological importance, because people say to me, what's the use of seahorses? Why are they there? What is the point of them at all? Well, one of the main things is population control. Nature is a constant cycle of checks and balances all the time. If one species breeds too much, then another species either eats it in greater numbers, and then that number builds up, and then their numbers get too big, and it all has to be balanced at some time. So with the fry eating so many pieces of plankton a day, that helps to keep plankton in control. The adults feeding on shrimp stuff, that keeps the shrimp in control. And without a doubt, like I said just now, out of every 1,000 fry born, one or two, up to five out of 1,000 will survive to maturity. So they have their role as eating, and they're also sadly the eaten as well. And that's one of the reasons why seahorse produce so many fry over a whole year, because only a small amount will actually survive. They are a habitat indicator. Without a doubt, if the habitat, like at Studland Bay, all the hard work that everybody's put into it, and there are just too many people to mention now that are involved in the Studland Bay project. If it wasn't for Studland Bay increasing in quality, increasing its seagrass bed, we wouldn't see more seahorses on every single dive. Doesn't mean there are more seahorses there at the moment. We're just seeing more of them, which is fantastic. Personally, I think Studland Bay is holding, or South Beach at Studland Bay is holding up to maybe about 50 individuals. I could be wrong on that, but it looks to be as though that's what's happening. And numbers are slowly increasing, which is a real testament to all the hard work that everybody's done. As an indicator of the habitat quality, if everything's in balance, like I said just now, there's checks and balances in nature. Everything has to be checked and balanced and checked and balanced. You start to get an imbalance and things start to go wrong, and then something will step up to the mark and put it back into balance. So it is a great indicator that Studland Bay and other areas are starting to repair and starting to basically be the place it should be. Um, Somebody would probably ask me, or I have been asked in the past, how many seahorses do you think that Studland Bay could hold if it was back to full repair? I think roughly 100 to 200 in total between South Beach and Middle Beach. And we do know that the seagrass is increasing a bit further than that. Now, there are a lot of threats to seahorse populations, and this basket of dead seahorses is a very classic example. They're still used for the traditional medicine trades and for the curio trades, and every year about 150 million seahorses are collected. Now, the problem is that that was the case a few years ago. A good friend of mine did some research over in China about this, went into medicine factories and this sort of thing, and they just didn't care where the seahorses came from. They didn't care whether there was paperwork with them. They just wanted seahorses because they know that seahorses have been so overfished in some areas, they don't exist anymore. In the early days of the Studland project, we did go 2.5 years without any seahorses there. Now, that wasn't because of overfishing. That was because the habitat wasn't suitable enough to keep the seahorses going. So that checks and balance wasn't in place. So it's great to see it coming back in again. There are other things as well. I mean, the curio trade, which we do a lot of work about, you can still go online, even though it's illegal, and buy dead seahorses on eBay, Etsy, Facebook, all the rest of it. People like eBay are actually working very closely with us now. Excuse me. And every time we see a seahorse advert, they'll take it down within 24 hours. So it's becoming a place where you get less and less of them. Facebook were a very good partner at one stage. Sadly, they're not so good now. Etsy is another great one. Amazon. So closing the doors to these trades is the most important thing to help preserve seahorses. We did have a case a number of years ago where it was suspected some illegal activity going on at Studland Bay and some seahorses were being taken. Luckily, because of the community that's there now, because of the way things are built up, this was before the Studland Bay Marine Partnership, the community were looking out for people, reporting these people in, and we managed to stop that. Climate change is also another thing that affects seahorses because not so much the temperature for where they are, but it's because, again, it goes back to this checks and balances. The habitat has to be right, the food has to be right. So climate change can affect that. And so if it's not right, the seahorses will disappear. Now, we have had some amazing successes, and this is a great picture of one of the eco moorings at Studland Bay, the Studland Bay Marine Partnership, which I'm very proud to have co-founded with so many other people like Ken, who's on the talk here, and Michael and others. It is so good to see this happening. What we do at Studland Bay now is actually being used as an example of how to do marine conservation around the world. And again, my inbox is full of people saying, how did you set it up? How does it work? You know, what's the pros, what's the cons, and what have you. So it's really, really good to see all this happening. It took us 9 years to get the site protected, and Michael Gove, when he was the Environment Minister, believed in what we were doing so much that he signed on the dotted line to make Studland Bay a marine conservation zone. That was the first step towards actually making a big difference to what we were doing. A few years later, thanks to Michael from Boatfolk and the team at Boatfolk, and particularly to Ken, who's been on this journey with me right from the beginning, and he was even studying the seagrass way before I even got there. You know, with everybody working together, it's been very successful. In 2000, or a couple of years after 2019, we put the first 10 eco moorings in. And I always remember Michael's words to me, it won't solve the problem, but it will start the conversation. And look where we are now. 87 eco moorings installed, hopefully more to come in the future, increase in seahorses, increase in seagrass, and a very successful project. So that was just a slight insight into seahorses. They are a much more in-depth species than that. And like I say, I've been working with them since I was 14. They have a very unique biology. Are of ecological importance. And conservation, they tell this story. They are the great storytellers of the sea. On land, we've got things like wolves and pandas and stuff that tell a story of conservation. Seahorses do that in the sea. And I just want to say thank you ever so much for inviting me. And again, apologies for not being here last week. I truly wasn't very well. And I believe Tony's got some questions that have been sent in on the chat.
Yeah, thanks very much, Neil. That's yeah, an amazing presentation. Really, really interesting. So yeah, thank you very much.
It's a
But I've
pleasure.
certainly learned a lot of things myself as well. So yeah, thank you very much. Can you see my screen there at all?
Yep.
Yep. So so yeah, there's a QR code and the web link as well for the Studland Bay Marine Partnership work. And there's yeah, and obviously we can one we've recorded this presentation and we'll upload it to YouTube over the next couple of days, and we'll send out the link to everybody. So for those of you who missed the start of the presentation or joined a bit late, then we can share that as well. So if you'd like to put any questions in the chat, I can read those out to Neil if that's okay. Shall I just have a quick look? No questions at the moment, Neil.
Ooh, I got off lightly then.
Yeah. One of the questions I was going to ask you is how long is the male seahorse pregnant for? What's the gestation period?
Yeah, it depends on the species, to be honest. On the spiny seahorse, which is the bigger of the two species we have here in the UK, it's roughly about 28 days. Again, it depends on water temperature, etc., feed and all that. With the short snouted, it's about 25 to 26 days. But that little pygmy seahorse you saw on the sea fan there, they can be pregnant for about 10 to 15 days. Now, interestingly, out of all the seahorses, they're the only ones that hold the eggs and young internally inside the body. Most of the seahorses have the pouch that hangs from under the belly and is attached to the tail. So that's a separate part to the actual body. But with the little pygmy and dwarf seahorses, they actually have them internal. With the sea dragons, like I said, they embed the eggs onto the outside of the tail. There's a certain amount of nutrition exchange there, but the evolution of seahorses basically came from a pipefish, which is a very long, straight version of a seahorse. Over the time, you can actually see it on every pipefish species of the six pipefish we have here in the UK. You can see the evolutionary stages from the point of literally sticking the eggs on the outside of the body, to sticking them to a little groove under the belly, to them having them underneath some flaps, to starting to develop this more upright stance, as in like the worm pipefish that has a prehensile tail, to onto the seahorses that are upright, prehensile tail, fully blown brood pouch, and they got because if you imagine a pipefish, if it had a prehensile tail, its head sticking upright, so that's not a very good evolutionary trait. So seahorses are one of the few fish species that have actually developed a neck which allows the head to bend downwards, giving it its classic horse shape, and it's very much like a chess piece shape as well.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, questions are coming in now, so thank you for those. Somebody has asked, what depth do they swim at in the UK? I'm sorry if you've mentioned it before, they've put.
No, no, that's okay. One of the things that we discovered, partly because I set up in 1994 the British Seahorse Survey, which is a database of seahorse sightings around the UK, and that allowed us to understand more about seahorses, their movement, and what. And I always suspected that during the winter, seahorses would migrate into deeper water and come back in the shallows. And the data from the survey actually allowed us to prove that. So in exposed coastlines like Studland Bay, seahorses will disappear into the depths out into Poole Bay, so 20, 30 meters or so. And in the early spring, summer, they'll start to migrate back inshore until the first storms of the autumn, and then they'll go back out again. Now, in sheltered areas like Poole Harbour, they tend to stay there all year round for the simple reason that Poole Harbour is a lot more protected than a coastal area like Studland Bay. So the deepest record we have of a seahorse in the UK is at 70 meters. The shallowest record we have is at 1 meter.
Right.
So quite diverse.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, I didn't realise that the seahorses were found that deep in deeper water, to be honest, until I saw this
Well,
presentation. So it's
ju-
great.
just a few years ago, I did a judicial review against the government about the proposed oil rigs that were going to be literally just offshore from Studland Bay.
Mm,
If I'd known now what I knew then, I probably would never have taken a judicial review on. But the reason why I did it was because at about 20, 30 meters out there, where they were going to um, put the oil rig, literally where they were going to put the oil rig, there were seahorses recorded there. As it
mm,
turned out, they got an exploratory rig in, but touch wood, they haven't been back since.
yeah.
We won our judicial review, by the way. So-
Okay. Oh, well done. And this relates to what we were speaking about earlier, actually, before we started. Neil, is about well, it's actually persuading boat folk to put eco moorings in Weymouth Bay, as there's evidence of seagrass there. And we
Hmm.
are speaking about how there's one or two eco moorings there already. Not, I don't think they've been put in by boat folk, but they've been
No, they haven't. They've
put
been
in.
put in by other people. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So
Um,
sorry, I missed the question there. Sorry.
so is are there? I guess are there more plans to put in more eco moorings in Weymouth Bay?
Um, Probably not through this particular part of the project because it's an intense amount of work. It costs roughly about £100,000 a year to maintain and look after those 87 eco moorings at Studland. And for anybody out there that wants to support the project, please go on the QR code. They need the funds to actually do the looking after the moorings and what have you. And for those boat owners that actually use the eco moorings, please, we ask you, please pay for the eco moorings because it does pay for their upkeep. It does pay for them to be clean. But I think with regard to the Studland Bay Marine Partnership, probably not. No, not in Weymouth Bay. But as a result of the work of Studland Bay, there are a lot of people actually doing similar things to what we're doing now. And so there are other people trying to put in eco moorings, and it would be great to put more in Weymouth Bay, without a doubt.
Yeah. Whilst we're on the subject of eco moorings, somebody is asking how the eco moorings help the seahorses.
Yeah, it's really simple to be honest. The eco mooring is basically a giant screw that goes into the seabed. It's about 2 meters long. Attached to that is a rubberized riser, and at the top of that you have floats and the eco mooring. Now, what happens as the tide goes up and down with a traditional mooring, with a chain mooring, the chain starts to lay on the seabed. It scours away great parts of the seagrass and destroys the habitat. And it's about this checks and balances again. It starts to break everything down. The ecosystem breaks down. Now, having eco moorings in, they never touch the seabed. So they don't cut down the seagrass. It allows a better knitting together of the seagrass. It allows a more complete cover of the seagrass, which makes a much healthier ecosystem. Now, the other thing about seagrass ecosystems is that they're very important for commercial fish species as well. So mackerel, bream, sorry, and things like that all breed in these sort of areas. Bass is another one. And so their fry actually provide food for seahorses. So get the ecosystem right. I always imagine the natural world as a wall. If you imagine you've got the foundations of the wall, say the seagrass, coral reefs, mangroves, all the rest of it, if they're in good health and you've got all the species, each brick represents an individual species. If it's held together, it works incredibly well. But the moment you start to take a brick out, so a fish species here, a fish species there, and if you start to destroy like the seagrass and stuff like that, the wall starts to become very crumbly and the system all falls down. And nature's just like that. It's like a wall. If it's nice and solid, it works. If it's not nice and solid, it starts to crumble. And then where we can, as humans, we have to stop doing what we're doing, or we have to put in measures like eco moorings to actually bring it back to health again.
Yeah. Just to say on that, actually, there's lots of images and graphics on the website on the link there that so you can actually see how the eco moorings work on there. So and there's some explanations as well.
We
Um,
we we also sorry, Tony. We also have the
there's that.
same on the Seahorse Trust website as well. There's a lot of information and a direct link back to the Studland Bay Marine Partnership as well. So.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So the other questions are how do you estimate the numbers of seahorses in Studland Bay?
We've got so used to surveying down there now. We have regular transects that we dive along. We have a huge volunteer call. I have to say at this point, Dr. Ken Collins from Southampton University and Jenny Mallinson have kindly taken over most of the surveying for me at Studland Bay now. Which has been fantastic. They have a big volunteer team. I volunteer on it occasionally, but it's allowed us to get to know the site really well. I could be plonked anywhere in Studland Bay and roughly know where I am. And so, that's how we start to know how many are actually in there.
Yeah, okay. Somebody's asked about how do you conduct the surveys? How long do you have to wait to typically see one? See a
Uh,
seahorse?
it depends on how good your eyesight is, to be honest. We that picture I showed you earlier on, where I put the red ring around it,
Mm.
that's what we're up against all the time. Trying to spot a seagrass and a seahorse in seagrass is very, very difficult. And until you get your eye in, until you get experienced, it sometimes you can go straight out. Even now, after all these decades, I can go across there, and sometimes the person behind me is laughing their socks off because I've actually gone over a seahorse, not on top of it, but over it,
Mm.
and they spotted it after me. So yeah, so that's how we do it.
Yeah,
It's getting your eye in is the crucial thing.
yeah. Somebody's asked, do you know of any conservation work happening off the Sussex coast, knowing that there's seagrass beds there?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going off the Sussex coast. You have to apologize. I have to apologize. I can't remember the exact name of the group, but there's a lot of kelp restoration going on there. There are the local wildlife trusts that are doing work. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on Sussex as well. Steve Allnut is restoring kelp over there, as are a lot of other people. So yeah, lots going on.
Yeah,
Quick Google search will probably be the better way to get it.
yeah. Um, Another question: are they affected by wind turbines, or is there any research yet to look into
Yes,
that?
I've been a consultant on two wind farms now, and without a doubt they are affected by them. Firstly, the base of the wind turbines, they have to create an artificial base. Some species that's beneficial for, others it's not. But the other thing, and the more important thing, is the cables running back from the wind turbines to shore give off an electrical impulse. Very mild, very, very mild. But a lot of work has proven, particularly in things like elasmobranchs, like sharks, rays, and things like that, that they won't cross them. So it interferes with migration patterns. And we do know that seahorses are very sensitive to electrical impulses underwater. So yes, without a doubt. And yes, we have to have green energy, but sometimes green energy comes at a cost, and a wind turbine takes at least 25 years to become carbon neutral, and then you have to replace it. So it begs the question of what do we do there? The actual turbine is not really green. What it produces is green, but there's a conversation to be had there, really.
Yeah. Okay. A few more questions. Somebody's saying, have you connected with the ships projects or marine biology in Plymouth Sound to get any data on the seagrasses there?
We work with a lot of people, yes.
Yeah.
We have lots of partners and volunteers within our groups, and they help us out quite a lot. We actually work with Plymouth Sound Marine Park, National Marine Park, very closely on projects. So yeah, we work with partners all over now.
Yeah. A couple of people have asked for the Seahorse Trust website, so I'll make it is actually on that web page there. But I'll when we send out the email with
Yeah.
the video and so on, we'll add that to it as well.
It's very simple though, Tony. Just
Yeah,
Google the
just Google.
Seahorse Trust and it comes up. It's
Okay.
www.theseahorsetrust.org.
Okay, cool. We've got somebody's asking if they can volunteer as a diver. So it's a member of the local dive club. So who would they get in touch with?
If they get in touch with me first and foremost, and I'll pass their details on to Dr. Ken.
Perfect. Sorry, there's one that's quite a long one there. Somebody's about that asked for the cost of an eco mooring. I'm trying. We there obviously it depends which ones you order. I'm trying to. I think it was about 3,500, wasn't it, per eco mooring? I think the ones that
Yeah,
we ordered. But then obviously, as you meant saying as well, they've got the maintenance cost of that as well, and they do have to go in and out of so they come out for the winter, have to be checked,
they do.
serviced and so
Yeah.
on. So yeah.
I mean, it is roughly 3,000, £3,500 installed into the seabed.
Mm,
But like you just said, what we tend to do is we leave 10 out every winter, but bring all the others in, partly to maintain them, partly for longevity. And it does cost about £100,000 a year to maintain them. So if anybody out there wants to sponsor or pay for an eco mooring, that would be absolutely fantastic. And if they can contact either yourself or the Dorset Coastal Forum, that would probably be the best way to do
yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think we've got links and
Yeah,
things that
yeah.
they could do on the
And
webpage.
yeah, and vice versa on the Seahorse Trust, you can get
Yeah,
in touch with them that way as well.
yeah. Uh, okay. Uh, Somebody's talking about egress here in Salcombe, and they're talking about when they're, the devastation by anchoring, basically, that
Mm.
when people are anchoring off the beach is caused by boaters and dragging their anchors up in the broach onto the beach. And they'd really like to get behind educating boaters about protecting the eelgrass. Is there anything that they can do to start a movement to stop boaters anchoring in the seagrass beds? And obviously,
Yes, with
Yeah, I'll do. Go on, you carry on. Sorry.
No, no, I was going to say without a doubt that I'm trying to remember the gentleman's name who's the Marine Warden for that area. But yes, without a doubt, if you contact South Hams and the environmental department there, and start this movement, we need Salcombe actually and a few other areas are areas that actually desperately need eco moorings in them. I believe there is a look at trying to do these eco moorings down there. I have dived in Salcombe, and I apologise, I can't remember the chap's name off the top of my head. And there is a problem down there, without a doubt,
Mm.
and we
Mm.
need to do something about it. Wherever there's a sensitive habitat, whether that's seagrass or others. Oh, Nigel Mortimer. Thanks, Ali. It's just reminded me. Nigel Mortimer down in the South Hams. If wherever there is a sensitive habitat, we need to do something to help protect it. Like I said earlier on, this checks and balance thing all the time. If nature gets out of kilter, it has effect on us humans on land as well. So. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
it's yeah. I've seen Ali's message there. Yeah, thanks, Ali. Yeah, he's going to kill me, Nigel, for not remembering his name. I've known him for about 40 years, so but you know what it's like. So
Just to let you know as well, Michael Prideaux has responded to that request about Salcombe and is offered to give the to chat it through with them. So that's great. What I was going to say is that one of the things that I found really interesting in this project is other boaters learning all about eco moorings and the seagrass habitats and seahorses and talking to other boaters, and I think that's helped massively on this project. That kind of peer to peer sort of
yeah, can I
talking.
just pick up on that,
Yeah, go
Tony? Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic, and it just shows what the Studland Bay Marine Partnership has achieved that we, just as conservationists, weren't achieving. Um, we had a sort of not a very positive relationship with quite a lot of boaters when we were just doing it on our own. And slowly, because of working with Michael at Boat Folk and the boating community starting to talk to us and share ideas, and this backwards and forwards feeding of ideas. I mean, we used to go out quite often, just talk to boat owners and what have you. It's great. And they
on.
understood. But collectively, the Studland Bay Marine Partnership has allowed that to become a lot more productive.
Mm,
Without a doubt, Boatfolk, Michael, and all the rest of the team there changed things completely.
mm,
Without that happening, we wouldn't be where we are now. And I'll just say a shout out to Michael. We had a meeting along the beach, as you do, and we were just chatting, and he believed in what we were doing, which is fantastic. And it's led on to what we're doing now.
yeah, yeah. And all to say as well, out of the group, there's a lot of people volunteering their time to kind of spread the word as well, which is, it's been amazing. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
incredible. Um, somebody,
Can
so
I
go on.
answer Heather's thing about
Yeah,
mudlarkers there? Is that
go for
okay?
it. Yeah.
Yeah, hi Heather. Yeah, mudlarkers are amazing. They're a licensed group of people that are allowed to explore the shores of the River Thames, and they are an amazing source of information to us. There's a small article I wrote on our website about these seahorses in the River Thames and how high up the Thames they go and what have you. So please check that out on I think it's under the education page. But without the mudlarkers and volunteers and people walking along the beach and divers and stuff, we wouldn't know so much about seahorses. And like I said to you right at the very beginning of the talk, every time I go in the water, I learn something new about seahorses. And it's not a cliche. I literally do learn something. But more importantly, a lot of the things that I believed in, I took it sometimes look at with a renewed set of eyes, to be honest. I question what I've looked at before when I see a new bit of behavior going on, so it's never too long, you're never too old to actually start learning new things about the species. And tonight's talk was literally just a glimpse at one of the most remarkable animals in the sea. And like all the enigmatic species like dolphins, whales, sharks, seahorses, all the rest of it, we're learning all the time as new technology comes along, as more people get interested, more volunteers out there. We learn all the time. And with Ken running the Seahorse surveys in Studland Bay now, he has a very big volunteer team. That really helps out what we're doing. So absolutely fantastic.
They work at an aquarium, and I was asking if you've got a handout that can be used, that they can sort of share information.
If they
Um,
if they want to email me, I can sort something out for them. That'd be great. The email address is on our website under the contact page.
okay, great. And oh, thank you, Jess. Jess has
Yeah, I
also
was.
posted
Yeah,
posted a link there as well.
thanks,
Um,
Jess.
so I don't know if you want to just take one more question. So the should eco-moorings be encouraged in all marine areas?
Without a
Um,
doubt. Yeah, yeah. We're up against the clock here. As humans, we are doing so much destruction to our planet. But as Studland has proven, we can actually do something about it. It's not too late. So we have to actually be proactive and protect the seas. I mean, you look at the Line Bay, fish project where the no-take zones and all the rest of it. The recovery in species has been amazing. I mean, look at the species we have around the southwest now. Bluefin tuna, all these different unusual fish species. I mean, bluefin tuna were a big fishery back in the I think it's the 1920s and what have you, and they vanished, but they're back again. And that's because people are proactively, I mean, Jess on here, her and her team are doing an incredible job. So it's being proactive, it's being done in concrete. If I had my way, every marine area would be protected, and you would have exclusion areas in that protection for other things, rather than having all the ever unprotected and having small areas protected. So, like I say, we need to look at, for want of a better expression, a landscape scale protection as opposed to small protection. So, or seascape scale, I suppose, is the expression. And rewilding is like a sort of version of that. I mean, rewilding is becoming very popular. It's particularly popular in Europe, and it's starting to become popular here in the UK. And instead of just looking at a single species, a single habitat, a single plant or what have you, it looks at the landscape holistically and as a whole. We've got to do that in the sea as well. So yeah, if I had my way, the whole sea would be protected and licensed activity happening within that protection.
Yeah. Okay. Last thing, as part of that question, somebody's mentioned in terms of encouraging eco moorings to be in marine areas, they're saying any coastal area, mass moorings, yacht clubs, but they're particularly on, they wanted me to mention mass moorings.
Yes, yeah, without
Yeah.
and again, Studland's a good example of that. There's mass
Mm,
moorings there now,
mm,
but they make a big difference, a huge difference,
yeah.
and it's crucial making this big difference. There has always been conservation success stories. I remember the California condor down to the last 12 individuals in the world. Various species like that. But if we can do it en masse, if we can do it on a seascape scale, landscape scale, then we'll have much more effect. And protecting the ocean, the seas, the rivers, the source. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
way we've got to go.
Okay. Well, I think that's it for now. I mean, you can read through the comments yourself as well, Neil. But there's been lots of, very thank yous and very informative and so
Thank
on. So
you.
yeah, if people obviously have enjoyed it, fantastic and fascinating information. There you go. There's another another comment
And
comments as well.
and
So
can I just give
oh,
a shout out for the
just
Seahorse Trust because we're a small
yeah.
charity. We do need funding, so if you want to help us, that would be brilliant. So,
Yeah, Jess has put a link to the Seahorse Trust in the chat as well. So yeah, so do take a look at that. And as I say, we'll
thanks,
we'll
Jess.
send that out as well in the email to those that have made it today, but also for those that haven't made it. So they'll be able to access it as well.
That's
But yeah,
fantastic. Thank you,
yeah,
everybody. Thank
yeah.
you.
Thanks everybody for coming along, and yeah, thank you for attending today. All right, and thank you very much, Neil.
Cheers.
I shall
Take
speak to
care.
you soon. Thank you. Bye
Yeah.
bye. Bye
Thank
bye.
you, everyone.